friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another this and that, and this is for the end of April. We'll be talking a little bit about some of what's going on in the garden, what I've got dehydrating, and a few other things. So let's get started. So right now, right here, you can see I've started harvesting my valerian leaves. So I'm getting ready to put these on the dehydrator, and as you can see, I've got them piled up high. Now I just started a new series, and the first video will publish in a few weeks. But this series is going to be about random tips, and my first one is about dehydrating. And one of the things I pointed out is when it comes to herbs, you can pile them pretty high on your trays when they allow a lot of airflow. So a lot of your different herbs like oregano, thyme, the valerian, many things, you can pile them high. You don't have to lay them out in one single spread out layer, and they will still dry very quickly. That's one thing I like about drying herbs. So anyway, the valerian leaf's gonna go on there. I do use the leaves quite a bit. I find the leaves to be pretty potent on their own, that I have yet to dig up any of the roots from my valerian. Besides, you want to let plants where you're going to harvest the roots off anyway, especially things like valerian and certain other ones. You want echinacea and more. You want the plants to grow for about 3 years before you start harvesting the roots. But mostly I find that the leaves on a lot of these plants and the flowers and even the stems can have a lot of benefits just as they are. And since valerian is pretty potent anyway, the root is where it's the most potent, but you can still get a very similar benefits from the leaves, and the leaves have a better flavor and smell than the roots do. So I use this as a pain reliever, muscle relaxer, and more. I do have a video that I did on valerian a year or two ago that I'll go ahead and link to down below if you're interested. And then I decided, I already have one tray going, I decided I'm going to go ahead and dehydrate up at least a quart jar this year of my nettle, even though I'm trying to get a lot of seed from it this year. And we've been eating a lot of it just fresh, well, cooking it up first, because it's best to cook your nettle in some form, whether it be steaming or sauteing. We're finding sauteing is our favorite way to have it, or just adding to other dishes. Because, and even dehydrating will do this, it will basically neutralize the sting that's in the little needles on the back of the leaves. So anyway, I decided I am going to go ahead and dehydrate up at least a little bit, even though I still have a lot from 2019. In fact, here's one of my 2019 jars that I just opened up. I've started to sprinkle some of this in Cody's food because he's been having a bad reaction to the recent dog food I had tried for him that I thought was a high quality, but it's been giving him rashes. Not going to give him that anymore, obviously, and I'm trying to get that cleaned out of his system, so I'm putting the nettle in there to help with that. Just sprinkling it over his food. And I'm not sure if I'm going to dehydrate my lemon balm this year. It's coming in, it's looking great, but I might use most of it as much as I can fresh this year, because one thing I found about lemon balm is that once I've dehydrated it, that's one of the things. Like peppermint is great. It dehydrates up beautifully, holds its flavor, as long as you don't overcook it when you make your tea. But lemon balm just doesn't have that same wonderful flavor when you go to make a tea from it after it's been dehydrated as it does when it's fresh. So my plan, in fact, I made a pot last night, and it was a blend of lemon balm, dandelion flowers, and a little bit of thyme, because I had dehydrated some thyme and pulled the leaves off and took the stems and threw them in there, and some comfrey leaves. As I'm sure most of you are growing comfrey, I've seen comfrey is starting to come in, at least for us anyway. And so I threw in a couple of comfrey leaves for their health benefits. Really liking comfrey in the tea. But anyway, it turned out to be really good. But lemon balm on its own, just a lemon balm tea, is wonderful and very beneficial. So I'm probably going to be using most of it fresh this year and just harvesting it and making tea every night as long as it's growing well. It may not dehydrate up any, just dehydrate up a lot of peppermint, because that's what we typically drink through the rest of the year. So then I want to talk a little bit about the dandelions. Yes, still dehydrating dandelions. I just about have my second jar filled up, but I haven't decided yet, I might go ahead and start some dandelion vinegar. I haven't made it in years, but dandelion does make a really good vinegar, and I wanted to mention this because somebody brought this up recently. and mentioned making dandelion vinegar, and yes, it is an excellent vinegar. In fact, I did a video 2-3 years ago about making a dandelion mint vinegar. I think it was dandelion and mint and maybe pansies. I don't recall what all was in it, and that turned out great. And so I'm thinking I might do one of just dandelions. So if I do this, I usually find I need to go out twice a day to pick dandelions. I like to get out there as soon as they open. The ones on the south side of the house are the ones that open first, obviously, because they're the ones that are getting the most sun. And they won't open until the sun hits them. So on rainy days, I don't even bother picking dandelions because none of them will open on the dark rainy days, which we're going to start getting those again tomorrow. So then going out again later in the afternoon and picking the ones on the west side, because then those have opened up, and those are some of my biggest, most beautiful ones. Like these ones here, a lot of these to me look really tiny. When you compare them to the ones, they get about that big, the flowers do. And so a lot of times if I don't get out there in time to get them on the dehydrator, then what I'll do is I'll just add them to tea, and they're real beneficial that way. Again, don't forget to check out my video I did a couple years ago on the benefits of dandelion, and that's all parts. The whole plant is edible and usable, has medicinal qualities, is wonderful. And again, my favorite parts to eat are the leaves when they're really young, straight off the plant, and the stems. I love the stems. I don't know why, but the stems are my favorite part. Even though the flower is the sweetest part, the stems are my favorite part to eat fresh. So anyway, what I was going to say is, if you decide, if you're like me and you're getting just like smaller amounts, picking smaller amounts at a time, you can start your vinegar by simply going ahead and putting your dandelion flowers into your jar, adding the water, maybe put the water about halfway up, add your sugar, and just get it started. And then as you're picking more dandelions, even if it takes a few days, just keep adding the flowers and more water until you get that jar filled up, and then let it go ahead and finish its process. That's what I do when I'm making banana vinegar. Maybe I have one banana peel, put that in a jar. Maybe tomorrow Patrick will eat another banana, throw that banana peel in there, and I'll do that for a few days until I have the jar full. And that works great. You can do that with anything. So when you're making that vinegar, just don't feel like you have to have everything right at the start to get that vinegar started, but you can start it without having to refrigerate these or whatever to keep them good. That sugar water is going to preserve them long enough, and it's going to start fermenting anyway, so you'll be just fine to do it that way. So I might do that. I don't know. I just haven't decided, because I need those dehydrated dandelion flowers for other purposes as well, which I'm going to talk about next. And these are actually dandelion flowers from 2018, so I need to start working through these. But I use dandelion flowers in soap making quite a bit, but I need to get started today, another batch of my healing salve oil. So the infused oil that goes into my healing salve. So I have two videos. One is on the infused oil and the other is on the healing salve. So first you infuse the oil, then after it's all well infused, then you make your healing salve. And so I will link to both of those videos down below. But really liking the healing salve that I made. And Patrick even uses it on his hands in the evening, because his hands are all dry from working in the shop and working outside and working in the garden and whatever it is he's doing. Milling around milling around at the property, sawing up some walnut and some alder boards and so on. But anyway, so he'll use that on his hands. But one of the things I wanted to share was I had recently got a burn on my finger. Well, it's not that recent now. It's probably about a month ago. Right there, I was putting some stuff in the wood stove, and I stuck my hand in too far and touched one of the little metal pieces that go across the top on the inside of the wood stove. And of course, it was very, very hot and just burned the skin right off of there. And usually the first thing I did was, because I can't handle putting on a burn like that, can't handle putting anything directly on it. It's just too sensitive. So what I did was I first took a fresh leaf off of one of my aloe vera plants, and broke that up and squeezed some of the gel into a little bowl of very cold water and just soaked the finger and just kept soaking it, and that immediately takes the sting out as long as you keep your finger in that cool water. But then the aloe vera, if I put the aloe vera directly on there, it when it's a fresh burn, it's too painful. But putting it in the water and soaking it for a while, and then the next day I was able to start putting on the salve, and I could not believe how quickly the salve healed up the burn. I mean, it was incredible, and I was very pleased with it. So even though I have quite a bit of salve still made up, I want to get a bunch more made up. So I definitely, since I like to let my herbs infuse for at least 2 months, I definitely want to get that going right away. So don't forget to check out those videos. And one of the things, of course, I use in there is dandelion flowers. In fact, this time I'm going to cut the calendula because I need to save the calendula for my skin cream. Didn't get a lot of calendula flowers last year because of that weird cold weather that moved in after things started heating up, and then all of a sudden it got really cold, and my calendula was so stunted that I just didn't get much off of it. In fact, if it wasn't for a couple of older plants that had come back from the year before, I would have hardly got any flowers at all. So because of that, what I'm going to do is just increase the amount of the dandelions, actually increase the amount of all the ingredients and cut back on the calendula flowers, because your plantain, your yarrow, and your comfrey are also incredibly healing and very good for most any skin related problem you're having. Again, calendula is excellent too, but this is just one of those questions that I get, by the way, quite a bit is, well, I don't have any of this. What can I use in replacement? Well, it might not be that you necessarily need to replace it. It just might be that you want to stick with just one ingredient anyway, or one herb, or just increase the amount of the other herbs that you're using. I just always like to use blends because I have all these great herbs growing, so I like to use all of them if I can. But a lot of people like just dandelion flower, or just plantain, or just comfrey, or just yarrow for an infused oil for making their skin salves. It's all going to have to be tailored to suit you and what's available to you. Okay, and more garden related stuff. I'm not ready to put in the carrots yet. I did figure out by looking at I found my little map of carrots that I kept last year, because I tried 5 different varieties last year, and it was these ones right here that did the best, that gave me the most amount of carrots. So I was glad that I kept that little map, or that I found it. But what I found around here is that it seems like it's best if I wait until later to plant the carrots. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to grow some of the white beets. These aren't sugar beets, but they're supposedly a very sweet beet, and they're organic, non-GMO. I got them from Baker Creek a couple years ago. So I'm going to try growing some of those this year, though. I like red beets quite a bit, and I know because of the deep red color, that's part of what makes them so incredibly healthy. But I just wanted to try something different, and I wanted to try growing my rutabaga in there, but I misplaced the seeds. I had them the other day, can't find them anywhere, but I did leave a spot. So I thought I'd see how the beets do in there. So I planted one of the boxes, I planted half of that with the white beets, and then if I ever find those rutabaga seeds that I set somewhere, I'm gonna put that in the other half, and then reserve the other box just for these carrots right here. And then if Patrick has time, I don't know if he will this year because he has so much on his plate, I'm hoping that at some point he'll build me 2 more of those boxes to go out there, and I can use those, maybe even 3, I don't know, depends on how much space we have. But I don't expect him to get it all done this year because, again, he's got so much to do. But eventually at least 2 of those boxes will be reserved just for carrots, and then the other ones I'll be using for other different types of things, whether it be root vegetables or maybe more strawberries, whatever I think is going to do, or even onions. Onions was another one I thought might do really good in those boxes. So we'll see as time goes along. It might be a couple years before we get all that done, but at least I got the 2 boxes to work with, and know that the carrots really were happy in those. At least these carrots. So that's the other thing. Half of it is figuring out what soil is going to work best for you, and the other half is figuring out what carrot is actually going to do best for you and where you're at. And I wanted to thank everyone for reminding me about these things. So I finally did get a couple, and these are for opening those buckets. We're not talking about the Gamma Seal buckets. Those have a nice, easy to open twist on top. But for those who are wanting to go with the cheaper option, which I believe works just as well for preserving your food, if not better, than the Gamma Seal, where you have to pry it off. Getting one of these, I knew years ago that they made them, forgot all about them until some people on my last bucket video that I did reminded me of these, and so I finally remembered to order a couple of them up. They're very inexpensive, but this is going to make it a lot easier, especially if you have arthritis or just weak hands in general. You know, you might have strong arms like I do, but you might have weak hands. A lot of times it doesn't matter how strong your arms are if you don't have a good enough grip, which has been my problem ever since my first pregnancy. Some other things going on in the garden. My peas are coming up. I still have them behind the polycarbonate, as you can see in this little video clip here, but they're growing good. That polycarbonate just gives them a head start, gets them going, and keeps the robins from pulling them out of the ground when they first start coming up. That's an issue around here, is when the peas, it's only with the peas, and I think it's because of the time of year I plant them, when they first start coming up, the robins come pull them out, and I think it's because they think they're worms. Anyway, those are doing good. I got my beans planted, just got them in the ground, and Patrick and I are in the process of getting some polycarbonate. We do have the polycarbonate. We've got a whole wall where the beans are growing. That's just in case it gets really cold again this year, this spring, like it happened last year. And then we're going to put another one up, and I'm going to plant the corn real soon here on right up next to that one. I'm going to get the tomatoes out of their little pots here within the next day or two, which will probably be done by the time you're seeing this video. There's a few days of a time gap from the time I shoot these videos, not like my other ones that are a few weeks or more. These ones are a few days. So by the time you're seeing this, I should have my tomatoes in the ground, in the greenhouse, because we got it all ready. The soil's all ready in there. I got some lime and some bone meal in there worked into the soil, so we'll get those in the ground and get them separated out. Now if you're interested in how I do that, I probably won't be shooting another video on that this year, but I'll put a video down below in the description box that I did last year showing how I transplanted them, because I have my own unique way of growing tomatoes, and how I just keep them in a cluster until I'm ready to actually put them in the ground. And you'll be surprised at how well tomatoes can handle being pulled apart. You obviously don't want to break off the whole root ball, but I think what that does is it actually helps to stimulate the growth, and they can do quite well without having to grow each tomato in individual little tiny pots until you're ready to put them in the ground. But if you're going to sell them, obviously you want to separate them out and put them in smaller pots to be able to sell them if you're doing that. And the peppers, I did move the peppers from inside and put them into the pots. Those will stay in pots, but out in the greenhouse, I just put them in big pots on the shelf, and I'll have more to put in pots out there once I get the tomatoes out of the pots that they're in. So that's pretty much it for the garden. There's a lot of more cleanup and harvesting this and that, and pruning back the sage and so on and so forth, and I can go over some of that in another video. But one last thing I want to talk about before I end this video is the silicone bags that I was talking about that I got from a small business owner here in the US. I'm really liking these. I've only frozen a few things so far, but I noticed, I just checked on the items, and no freezer burn, none of that frost buildup in there like I see in some of the Ziploc bags that I had to resort to because I had nothing else to put some things in, and I needed the space. I couldn't put them in jars. And I noticed that these are definitely doing a better job at preserving the items in the freezer. They're heavy duty. I'm really happy with them. And here's the wonderful thing. I didn't ask for this, but Magda over there at Cocoa Stripes, where I got the bags, some people had started ordering them, and she appreciated that so much that she has offered a discount link. I think it's a 15% discount that I can give to you on the silicone bag. So I'll be putting that down below so that you can get a little savings on that. And I thought that was really sweet of her to do that. And also, it's also my affiliate link, so I can actually earn a little bit from that sale as well. So we're both getting helped out, and you're able to support a US based business, small business owner, which is what we obviously, even though I have my Amazon links, and that helps us out too, as much as we can support the small business owner. I do strongly believe in that, because that's what we are. We're small business owners and have been for many years. So every little bit we can do to help each other out, especially now more than ever, is really important. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and so some of the tips, and don't forget to check the links that I'll be putting in the description box down below. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.